Are you going to train in this today, or are you going indoors?
We may not. Yeah, we're just working through that at the moment of seeing where it ends up. Doesn't look good on the radar, but there's that balance for us of getting out, and our boys enjoy sort of slogging it out every now and then what we need at the moment. So we'll just balance that. There's a chance we may not go out.
Can you replicate the indoor conditions of Marvel upstairs?
It's not quite the same size as the indoor Marvel, but yeah, if we don't go out, that'll be what we'll work on. Just some, that shorter skills, a heap of touch. It's a challenging one for us because the indoor centre isn't the size of Marvel.
Could you give us an update on Rash? He came out of hospital today by the sounds of it, and seems like it's all gone well. Yeah, came out. Obviously had the operation, and things went really well considering. Because when you have these injuries, you probably look at worst case first and work back from there. And in the end, it was a good result, where he's got a fair bit of rehab still ahead of himself. I won't be able to give you an exact time frame because the next couple of weeks are the most important part of how he sort of works through that and rehabs it and recovers. And then we'll know a little more, I'd say, in a couple of weeks.
He seems in good spirits though. The TikTok was fairly well received by all accounts on socials.
Well, I don't see his TikTok, so I don't know what you're talking about, but I should. Well, speaking with him, yeah, I think so. And he's probably showing maturity with that. I think that, maybe he was looking at the worst case and seeing this as a positive result. And he'll put his head down now and do it professionally and get himself right. And he'll try to get back and play this season, 7 weeks. It'll be a push, but he'll be doing whatever he can.
They came up to the boxes, he was sort of limping off, and you looked as though you were fearing the worst. Can you sort of take us through a coach's emotions?
Yeah,
like that?
Yeah. Any injury, any player, I think from a coaching point of view, you feel for the individual, and then you feel for the team and how it affects the team, because he's been a really important part in the cohesion that our group are building by playing alongside each other. When you change that, it changes the team. So first thought was with him, just trying to think about that, and then the team. But in the end, we'll have. It comes down to squad, and someone will have to step up in an opportunity that is now created. And Joshy will do what he needs to do to be a pro and get himself back.
You'd love to have a Josh Rochelle running around in the twos that you could pick. I guess it'll have to be a different sort of player. So do you try and pick it?
On our list.
Do you try and pick the closest you can to Josh, or does it involve a bit of a reshuffle?
Yeah, not necessarily, but it'll be obviously a forward coming in that's playing a similar role at Samful. It will never be exactly the same player as Josh, but there are some guys there that are knocking on the door that we've been really impressed with. Zachy Taylor's you've already seen him this year. Braden Cook's playing some great footy back there. I could go through a few others, and then Curvis is another one who's putting his name up as well. So from that point of view, it's pleasing that our guys are performing underneath, and we've been talking to those guys about staying ready, being AFL ready, so when the opportunity shows itself, and it's now.
How have you seen Luke Nanco's sort of evolution this year, having had the chance a few times to play further forward?
Yeah, really impressed with what he's been able to do in multiple different roles. I think he's he's a unique player. Nank, he's shown he can play at half back. We challenged him with some wing work, even at AFL level. And now he's doing some half forward work at Samful. We haven't seen that necessarily at AFL this year. But he's been really impressive in each of those roles. We know the step up's a big one, but he's definitely put his hand up.
Not necessarily this week, but is it a good thing that you had the run of Max Michelani playing as a forward a couple of weeks ago as something to potentially look at again? Now you'll be down a forward.
Yeah, I think it puts us in a good position, doesn't it? We've got some options there. Max did a great job when he went to that role. Our opposition this week, they've got talent right across the field, and there is a fair bit behind the ball as well. They're unique. The Bulldogs, they're pretty hard to shut down. You could talk about five or six different players that you're going to put attention into. So we'll have to look at that as a team, and we're going to have our work cut out for us in that space. But Max being able to go forward, it does add another string for us.
Bailey Dale is their sort of meters game king though. Could Max do a job on him?
I've got no doubt that would be a good matchup. It'll be a really challenging one. Dale's been a standout when it comes to the way he impacts games off half back. But we'll have a look at that, whether that's a team focus or whether we need to really. We use the word respect. We respect all our opposition, but sometimes we go a little bit over and beyond if it's someone like a Bailey Dale.
How much do you welcome the challenge of pitting yourselves against the Bulldogs, given the not necessarily ladder position, but the potency of their team and what they potentially could do this year?
Yeah, we just spoke through it. We talked about our opposition and we went through the weapons that they have and the challenge that's in front of us. I think our players, they look forward to those challenges. There's probably none bigger at the moment. The Bulldogs at Marvel and the way they play that ground, better than any, high scoring, potent when they get going, and we're going to have our work cut out for us, but that's what we enjoy as a footy team. I think we like coming up against teams that take you on, and there's no doubt that the Bulldogs do.
Do you still feel that external doubt at all, and as a group you're aware of what a win on Saturday might do to quell that? I know you block all that out, but it exists, I guess, I suppose.
No, what we are aware of, and we haven't necessarily as a group talked through this yet, we've only just touched on our Oppo. We'll do our main training today and then we'll get into a little bit of how we go about it this week. But we will be aware, we won't hide from the fact it's a big week, but we're locked in on this week. Some will call it movement week. It's, a lot of teams playing against teams around the ladder, same position. This will be quite a big week as far as putting in place what happens later in the year, but we'll be locked in on this week, I can tell you that, which our guys have done really well.
Coach, you talked about their potency. Have you ever coached against a player quite like Sam Darcy? He's a unicorn. He's really hard to match up on. That's going to be probably one of the biggest challenges if we allow the game to go there. There are some players like Sam's proving early in his career that he's very hard to stop one-on-one if the ball use is coming in a certain way, or the Bulldogs are able to get the game on their terms. It's only a matter of time before he impacts. So we'll be trying to stop it before it gets down there. That's easier said than done, but yeah, he's an outstanding player. He's good to watch. Yeah, has Jordan's form this year not surprised you, but I suppose if we looked at your back line at the start of the year, thought that Nick Murray would, spend a few weeks in the sample would have seemed a bit crazy. How much has he risen to the occasion of taking those?
Jordan Butts. Yeah, he's been great, hasn't he? He's, I'd say he's probably taken that. He's always been a very strong lockdown defender. That's what he's passionate about. That's one of his weapons. He's, really take out some of the best players in the game and nullify them, or at least, keep their impact down. None better than the last few weeks. Obviously, Richmond was a big one that stood out and has been commented on a fair bit. And then you touched on Nick Murray. When it comes to Muzz, we obviously rate him really highly, but at the moment, it's about him balancing his game out and getting his touch back. He's played a couple of games back since being very interrupted, and we're going to make sure we get that right for him from a footy point of view. I think from a body point of view at the moment, he's feeling fantastic. He feels great. We'll keep touching base on the body, but from a footy point of view, it's also important to get some footies in your hand, to touch, your timing, your reading of the air, the flight of the ball and things like that. And so he'll keep working on that. He'll be doing that again this weekend, but we're not going to put a date exactly on when he'll come in. It'll also depend on how the team's performing.
How are you seeing Sid's performances at a lower level?
Yeah, it's been great. Learning some really good things that we feel will set him up longer term. Did a couple of roles on the weekend and did a great job in it. And I think came away from the game, sitting with him and has sort of now added something to his game. Just that little bit of knowledge that comes with experience. Well, players always look back 2 or 3 years later and realise, geez, I did have a fair bit still to work on. He's doing a great job in that space.
Is Dan Curtin a little bit of, I know it's very, he's still in the infancy of his career, but is he a little bit of proof of how important those reps in the sample can be, given the way he's going now?
Well, I'm glad you noticed it. It's exactly, it's what we work through to, and we use those examples with our players. That comes with experience and a coaching group that are doing a great job, and a high performance group that are understanding the physical side of things. And it's not necessarily I'm drafted at pick 6 that I play AFL instantly. Every player's different. Every player develops differently, and it might be playing at an SANFL level
for 10 games sets you up better for your career going forward rather than coming straight into an AFL side. And we're constantly looking at that, making decisions.
So you talk about the challenge of the week. How pleased the year that we're heading into round 18 and we're talking about the Crows going over to Melbourne and trying to prove their premiership credentials, given all the all the ups and downs you've had to go through as a group over the last few years.
I've been super pleased with our consistency this year and our ability just to lock back in on the task. And the weekend was a great example of it. We probably had a few games this year where we've been down, like off our best, but limited. The weekend, the first half, there's no doubt we were off. We weren't quite at our best, and a team punished us. But for us to be able to turn that around in game, that's the most pleasing part. From a coach point of view, you look at it and you say, wow, we're maturing. We were able to get the game back on our terms, and maybe we dodged a few bullets in that first half. If they'd kicked straight, it might have been a tougher task, but in the end, you can't ask more of your playing group to be able to turn it around in the moment. Something we haven't been able to do in the past.
How impressed were you with that change? For that to come within the second quarter, we asked James Peatling about it yesterday. He said he wasn't really sure what changed in that moment, but how pleased were you with the way that they were able to follow those instructions mid-quarter?
Oh, we're really pleased. I mean, you look at it, and I think most, I said it in the post-game presser, most would have said the game's almost done. Melbourne had all the momentum. The game was on their terms. I'm not sure we touched it in the first 7 or 8 minutes. To their credit, they were playing at the level and we were off. But yeah, from a point of view of a group that's showing maturity, that is showing the path we're on is the right path, I think the weekend was a really big statement on that.
Game 100 for Isaac this week. Can you just touch on what a difference he's made to this club and maybe what the next 100 games might look like?
Yeah, we just watched, we haven't watched as a team yet, but I've seen his highlights video. We like to share that with the players, his first 100. Very similar to mine as a player. He's been such a, an addition of energy to our group. Obviously, his talent levels, the way he plays his footy, there's not many like it in the competition. They stand out, and he's one of those players. You're sort of marquee, you're elite level player. But he brings some stuff, even watching some of his highlights video, he brings some stuff that doesn't really get talked about or shown necessarily on the post games. Some of his chase and tackle, and some of his defensive work is at a super high level. So he's a well-rounded player. And we've had him throughout the midfield this year. We've had him forward of the ball. We'll keep looking at what's best for the team, but massive addition for us.
Does Rush's injury kind of mean that there might be times that he has to spend a bit more time forward of the ball in the next couple of months?
Possibly, and that comes down to how are we kicking our goals. You've got to look at what players are able to finish off in front of goal for you. It's the way you win games of footy is to finish the work off. So we've got to keep an eye on that of who we have ahead of the ball, and knowing that Tex has been that player throughout his career that even if he's not playing his best football, he's knocking through a few goals. He just knows how to find the sticks. So we'll have a look at that, what balance we have ahead of the ball for sure.
Just a sidebar on the drought relief match. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what, I suppose, why the club's doing it, why it's important?
Well, I think it's because we care, and we've got a lot of players who have an understanding of how tough it is at the moment for people out in the country and farmers and so on. Fogg's probably the biggest driver of it, and his background and the support that he's had right throughout his life. He now wants to give back, and he helps educate all of us around how tough it is at the moment. So we'll do whatever we can to help. Whether that's playing a game, whether that's getting some families along. I know our players are going out to do some clinics. Out in rural areas. It's something that we take pride in, being able to use the profile of our footy club to help wherever we can.
It's probably not surprising, but how pleasing is it when someone like Fogg or Nick Murray, speaks up and uses that position they have to be able to drive some change in an important area?
Yeah, it's a good sign, isn't it, for where we're at and what it is we prioritise. We talk a lot. Footy's one of those things. These guys are professionals. Footy's got to be number one, but we don't necessarily work that way. Family's one, and part of that is what Fogg's doing in this case. He does have family that's been affected and friends, so really glad he came out and pushed it, and others. Yeah.
Probably not a lot of drought in Ballarat. How thankful were you that the AFL switch is going to Marvel?
The way the Bulldogs play Marvel, we sort of You're almost so. We made it harder for ourselves, but no, the challenge was going to be a big challenge no matter where we played.
I'm not sure if you've seen this morning, but the incident with Michael Voss. How do you feel like seeing that happen to another senior coach in the league?
Yeah, disappointed. You know, there's a line I think that obviously crosses the line. There's an understanding from us that we're in a pressured job, and the environment is pressured. People love their sport, and you know we live for it. But I think there's a line that you just don't cross, and I think we have on this occasion.
Have you had interactions like that with fans before? Or?
No, I haven't.